The night he carried the last cardboard box through the iron gates of her house, rain soaking his jacket and his child asleep against his shoulder, he understood how completely life could strip a man down. Once, he had owned a home filled with laughter and promises. Now he stood in the driveway of a CEO's mansion, a single father with nothing left but responsibility and a heart worn thin by loss. The lights inside the house glowed warm and steady, as if daring him to believe in shelter again, but his hands trembled because pride hurts more than hunger, and asking for help feels heavier than any box he had carried. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of human compassion, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even the smallest kindness can change an entire life. He had never imagined this would be his reality. A year earlier, his life had collapsed in slow motion, beginning with a hospital corridor that smelled of antiseptic and ending with silence where laughter used to live. His wife's illness had drained their savings and his spirit, and when she passed, the world did not pause out of respect. Bills still arrived, work still demanded focus, and grief still sat heavy on his chest every morning when his daughter asked why her mother wasn't waking up. He worked harder than ever, taking night shifts and freelance jobs, but exhaustion is an unforgiving enemy. Eventually, he lost his apartment, then his car, then his confidence. Pride kept him quiet, but desperation has a way of forcing honesty. The CEO whose home he now stood before was not a stranger. She had been a distant figure at his company, respected, feared, admired, and entirely unreachable. She spoke little in meetings but commanded attention without raising her voice. When his performance began slipping and rumors of his situation spread, he expected a termination email. Instead, he received a calm invitation to her office. He sat across from her desk with his shoulders tense, expecting judgment, but what he encountered was silence, thoughtful and heavy, followed by a simple question about how his child was coping. That question cracked something open inside him. He hadn't realized how badly he needed someone to ask. The offer came quietly, without drama or charity speeches. She had an empty guest wing in her home, and she believed stability mattered more than pride, especially for a child. It was temporary, she said, until he got back on his feet. He tried to refuse. His voice shook as he insisted he would figure something out. But she didn't argue. She simply listened, then nodded as if she understood the fear behind his words. A week later, after sleeping on a friend's couch and watching his daughter pretend everything was fine, he accepted. Living under the roof of someone so powerful felt like standing on unfamiliar ground. Her house was vast but not cold, filled with quiet order rather than excess. There were no gold fixtures or flashy displays of wealth, only clean lines, soft light, and a sense of intentional calm. His daughter's eyes widened as she explored the space, her small hand gripping his, and for the first time in months, she slept through the night without nightmares. That alone felt like a miracle. Still, he carried guilt like a second skin. Every morning, he woke before dawn, cleaning the kitchen, organizing shelves, doing anything to justify his presence. He kept his head down at work, afraid of being seen as a charity case. The CEO remained distant but observant, offering polite nods and quiet courtesy. She never hovered, never intruded, yet somehow always seemed aware of his struggles. He wondered how someone so successful could notice the smallest details, like the way his daughter clung to him when strangers came near or how his hands shook when he balanced bills at the table late at night. The hardest moments came in silence. Alone in the guest room, surrounded by unfamiliar comfort, he battled shame. A man should provide, his father's voice echoed in his head. A man should never rely on others. Yet here he was, relying on a woman who barely knew him beyond spreadsheets and deadlines. Some nights, he considered packing up and leaving without notice, choosing hardship over humiliation. But then he would remember his daughter's smile in the morning light and stay. Change began subtly, like the slow shift of seasons. His daughter started laughing again, her drawings filling the refrigerator door with color and hope. He slept better, worked better, and slowly rebuilt his confidence. The CEO noticed. She began assigning him projects that challenged him, trusting him with responsibilities that hinted at her belief in his potential. When he faltered, she didn't criticize. She waited, giving him space to find his footing. That patience felt unfamiliar and powerful. One evening, after a long day that had pushed him to the edge, he sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the quiet hum of a house that wasn't his. His thoughts spiraled, doubts whispering that this peace was borrowed and temporary. That was when she appeared, not dramatically, but simply present, as if she had always been there. She sat nearby, not close enough to invade his space, yet near enough to offer comfort. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer solutions. Instead, she spoke softly, her words measured and sincere, telling him that strength was not proven by suffering alone, but by knowing when to accept support. She reminded him that his worth was not diminished by circumstance, and that his daughter was learning resilience by watching him survive with grace. Those quiet words changed everything. They didn't erase his pain, but they reframed it. For the first time since his wife's passing, he allowed himself to believe that he wasn't failing, that life had simply taken a harder path. He realized that her success had not hardened her heart, it had refined her empathy. She understood loss, though she rarely spoke of it. In her silence, he sensed a history of her own, a loneliness shaped by ambition and sacrifice. Two wounded souls, crossing paths not by accident, but by necessity. From that night on, he stood a little taller. He stopped apologizing for existing. He focused on growth rather than survival. Months passed, and his work flourished. Promotions followed, not because of favoritism, but because he earned them. He saved money, rebuilt credit, and started planning for a future he once thought impossible. His daughter thrived, her laughter echoing through the halls like a blessing. The house no longer felt intimidating, it felt like a place where healing had been allowed to happen. The CEO watched from a distance, proud but reserved. She never claimed credit for his transformation. When the time came for him to move out, the decision felt bittersweet. He had found an apartment close to his daughter's school, modest but theirs. Packing his belongings, he paused often, memories flooding back of nights spent crying quietly, of mornings filled with hope. He realized that this house had been more than shelter, it had been a turning point. On his last night there, as he stood by the door with his daughter's hand in his, he felt the weight of gratitude pressing against his chest. He wanted to say everything, to express how her kindness had saved them, but words felt inadequate. She met his gaze with that familiar calm and offered a small nod, as if assuring him that he had already said enough by choosing to move forward. In that moment, he understood that some people enter our lives not to stay forever, but to remind us who we can become. Before we reach the end of this story, take a moment to comment below and share what part of this journey resonated with you the most. Your words might inspire someone who is struggling silently right now. Years later, when his daughter asked about the hardest time in their lives, he spoke not of loss or fear, but of kindness. He told her about a woman who believed in quiet strength, who opened her home without expecting gratitude, who changed their story without ever trying to own it. He taught his daughter that success means nothing if it isn't shared, and that compassion can be as powerful as ambition. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who need hope, and it reminds us that even in our darkest moments, someone's quiet words can change everything.